Thanks for joining us. I'm Gabe with Backwoods Pursuit. Today we're going to do an Annihilator Broadhead review, and this Broadhead review is going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones that you may have seen or watched out there. We're not going to be doing a typical durability type of test where you're shooting them into cinder blocks, that sort of thing. What I want to go through in this video is how these things performed for me in the field this year in actual hunting situations. I use these and have been using these since they came out earlier here in 2019, and I've been using them out at the range all year, getting ready for hunting season. And then I actually took my elk with these this year as well. So I want to go over how they did, the blood trails, the penetration, durability, how they resharpened, all that sort of thing, even how they handled missing a target, shooting into a pile of rocks, that sort of thing. So that's what I want to cover in this. It's a little bit different than your typical Broadhead review videos. As we cover each of these things, I'm going to give you the things that I really liked about these Annihilator Broadheads and some of the things that I didn't care for so much. So come along as we do this. We do really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button for us. It really does mean a lot. Drop us a comment or a question down in the comment section there, and we'll answer every single one of those for you. I do the best we can to answer any questions you have on this or any of our other videos. So come along to do that, and let's go get started. Alright, first up, let's talk about the durability of the Annihilator Broadheads here. I've found in my shooting these, I shot these again all summer long, getting ready for elk season, and then shooting them during the hunting season. I was able to recover my arrow after I shot my elk, and this is actually the arrow that I shot my elk with. I was able to resharpen it, recover it. It was a complete pass through and buried in the ground on the other side of the elk for me, and I was able to find the arrow, sharpen it back up, and it really sharpened up nicely. This is ready to hunt with again, so it's certainly a reusable type of broadhead. Now, as far as, I've got another one here that I was practicing at some longer distances with and missed my target. I shot it into a pile of rocks, essentially, small pebbles, maybe golf ball size, and so it put a direct hit into that, and here's how it held up to that. You can see some of those edges are chipped off. The tip held intact pretty well, so it turned into a practice head for me. It's not something you could really resharpen, but there's enough left on there. If you had to shoot this after you sharpened it up really well again, you could. These are made out of 4140 alloy steel, and it's a cast, so they are one solid piece of steel, which I really like. It makes sharpening them easier, and it really helps in the durability of these broadheads. So that to me, they really performed well in the durability department. They held up well, and I shot these a lot when I've had them, so I was able to resharpen them every single time. So really like that. Next, let's talk about how they fly in the air. Long distance flight for these. For me, I know it's going to vary based on your bow setup and how it's tuned, but for me personally, I was able to get the same flight as my field tips out to 100 yards with these. I really didn't notice any difference any more than my human error. Obviously, at that distance, you're going to have some variation in where you're hitting, but for me, I couldn't tell any difference between my field points and these out to 100 yards. So long distance accuracy for me at the range here. Of course, I'm not shooting an animal that far, but I like to be practicing and getting myself ready to see how they're going to perform at those longer distances. So for me, they did great in the accuracy department. Now, they did have some issues with the first round. These are the 125s, and the first round of 125s did have some issue with dropping off past the 40-yard mark. That's been corrected with these newer ones, and so once these ones came out, I didn't have any issue with that like I did with that initial run. As I mentioned, they're super easy to sharpen. You just get a flat stone, or I've got actually a sharpening video. I'll put a card up here for you, and how I like to resharpen these, or really any 3-blade fixed broadhead, but these just sharpen up really, really nice, and it doesn't take a ton. You get a diamond stone, a diamond flat stone, or that I use the Valkyrie sharpening system, works really, really well. Check out that video if you want to see how I go through that process. Next, let's talk about flight noise with the Annihilator. For me, I tested these side by side with the Valkyrie Blood Eagles as well as the Day 6 Evos, and they were just a little bit louder in flight than either of those. It's not a big difference. It wasn't a big difference to me, but there was a little bit of a hiss with the Annihilator. Obviously, that's going to be near impossible to get on camera here for you, or I would do that, but that's really, really difficult to hear the minute differences in the arrow flight between these two. So these did have a little bit more of a hiss than some of those other ones, those Valkyrie or the Day 6 Evo. Again, not real noticeable, not a big deal, not loud at all compared to some others that I've shot that are much louder, but they were slightly louder than those other two. So now let's talk about how these things did actually in the field on an animal this hunting season. So I took my elk with this exact broadhead right here, like I said earlier, and it was a 40-yard shot, double lung pass through. It was really a perfect shot right in the armpit, double lung. There wasn't a whole lot of doubt in whether or not it was a lethal shot. So the animal walked about 50 yards, stood there for a minute or two, walked over the hill, and expired. So it was a very quick, did a quick job, made quick work of the animal, the Annihilator did here. So I was really, really happy with that. You can see in the video right here, this is an example of what that wound channel looked like, and this is when I walked up on the animal right now. It was turned all frothy like this, and really you could see there was a ton of internal damage done by the Annihilator. So it was a quick kill, and it did its job really, really quickly. Really brings me to the main thing that I was not happy with as far as the Annihilator goes. Like we always try to do, we try to bring the good with the bad in our reviews, and so this part, as far as the blood trail, is what I wasn't real happy with on the Annihilator. In that 100-yard span, there wasn't really any blood in that first 50 yards, which is not that uncommon. But when it stood there for a couple of minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, there was only a real small pool of blood, and then when it walked over the hill between there and where I found the animal, there might have been 1 or 2 more drops. So really about 2 or 3 drops of blood in that 100-yard span on a perfect double lung shot. And that's really the thing that really bothered me about this, and really the only thing that I didn't like about the Annihilator was the lack of blood trail that I got on a really good shot. That being said, there's so many variables out in the field when you're talking about a live animal and the things that can happen. It's just tough to say that's going to be an across-the-board situation or issue for anybody else out there. So I can only bring you my experience, the good with the bad. Overall, I just really liked these broadheads. I love how they fly. I love their long distance flight. I love how you can resharpen them so easily. I love the durability. They're small, they fly pretty quietly, relatively quietly, and not as quiet as some others, but they are very quiet in flight, so then that didn't bother me at all. They just did really well. They performed really well across the board, save for a poor blood trail. And I know that Annihilator is talking about and working on making some variations of this that are going to provide a better blood trail, because I have talked to them about the blood trail issue, and I know they're looking at that, working on that, and have some things in the works for that. So that's my experience. I hope that's helpful for you. Drop any questions, comments down in the comment section. We'll answer any questions for you. Happy to help if we can. Thanks for joining us here today, and we'll see you next time.